Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And, well, I just said our weekly show, but right now we're every other week. And on the opposite weeks, you can find our podcast, the Keep Growing podcast, and it's on all the major podcast platforms. There we go, I'll get it out. And we also upload a audio version of it to YouTube. And of course, you can find it on our website at bobsmarket.com. So every Tuesday, you can either find Bob's Live, or next week, we'll have an episode of the Keep Growing podcast. So let me get started this week by first saying, hey, give us a follow. So you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we're also over on TikTok, and also now we're on Rumble. So TikTok, we're doing more short form videos. We're shooting to get to that 1,000 follower point, and then we can start going live over on TikTok and doing more live content out in the greenhouse. And I think that would be really fun to do. Also, over on Rumble, once we get to enough followers there, it's a video platform just like YouTube. We can start going live there also. So yeah, those are both two new things that you can check out. Up first this week, I thought we would head out to the greenhouse for a quick update. And what I thought about doing this week was kind of looking at plants in different stages of growth in our greenhouse. So what we specialize in here at Bob's Market is, well, what's behind me here, and that is seedling plugs. So most of the plants, when they leave our facility, are only about an inch tall, and they head out to other garden centers and greenhouses. So I thought we would start with some much smaller plants and then follow them along through a few different steps in the process. So this week we're going to take a look at some begonias. Hello. This evening I am out here in the greenhouse on kind of a rainy, dreary evening. And the last time we were in this exact spot, it was full of ferns that were just heading out to their permanent homes in the greenhouse, like right above my head here. And now we have begonia seedlings in this same area. And they are teeny tiny little sprouts. So let's take a closer look. So here we have the begonia seedlings, and they are incredibly tiny. Each tray here has 288 seedlings in it, and if we zoom in, there we go. There are some little teensy tiny begonia seedlings. Now for scale, let me find my hand. There we go. So that is my pointer finger. So that gives you a sense of scale there. And going from these little seedlings, if we zoom out, you can see just how many we have. So in this area, we literally have tens of millions of begonia seedlings. And these will all be shipping out in the coming weeks. These are actually going to ship out around week 11. And right now we're in week 5, so they have about 6 more weeks to go. So here we are in a different section of the greenhouse, and this is the same tray size of begonia. This is Begonia Harmony Scarlet, so it has those scarlet leaves, which when the begonias first sprout, the leaves are all green, and then they start to get this color if they're a scarlet variety as the plants start to mature. So these are shipping out in week 7, so they're 4 weeks older than the ones that we were looking at a little bit ago that were just starting to sprout. But these still have a couple more weeks to go. So let's go find some that are going to be shipping out in the next week. Alright, so I found some begonias that are going to be shipping out in week 6, so this coming weekend. If I grab a tray here, this is the exact variety that we were looking at out back when they were just little teeny tiny leaves. So this is what a tray fully grown and ready to go out the door looks like. So from here it's going to get shipped out to possibly another small garden center or to another greenhouse that's going to grow them into a finished product that they'll then sell to an end purchaser, whether it's a landscaper or a store or something like that. So there's a couple different routes that these plants can take from here. So it's either directly to a garden center or to a greenhouse that's going to finish them. And then something that we do, if you would go to a Bob's Market, you would find this variety of begonias, Super Olympia Mix, and we sell it in 32 count flats. So we take these also and transplant them into flats. And just like in the other part of the greenhouse, this entire bay is nothing but begonias. And you might see some holes and areas where there's trays missing back through there. And that's because we organized them somewhat alphabetically. So it's just where we didn't have enough of that one item to fill up a bench. Alright, I just happened to be walking through the greenhouse and I saw this order, and it has begonias in it that are shipping out, well, right now. So these begonias right here are on the cart getting ready to go out the door. So that's a quick trip through the greenhouse, and you kind of got to see a crop from start to finish by looking at different weeks in the production cycle. So we started off with little seedlings that were shipping out in week 11, and then we saw some that are shipping out in week 7 that's kind of midway through, and at last there we saw some stuff literally getting ready to go out the door. And well, that is the process that we go through on kind of a repeating basis, a weekly basis here at Bob's. We always have seedlings being sown, grown, and shipped. So yeah, that is the process that we go through to grow our plants. And I have somebody outside the window right now. I actually have to set up for a different camera shot, so let me go ahead and put you guys on standby for just a second. All right, here we go. Ooh. Okay, let's see. Are we live and can you hear me? I had a person at the window that needed cutting labels because right now we are sticking cuttings for springtime. Which, yeah, we did a video on that just a few weeks ago. Kind of checking on camera stuff right now. I think we're good. So, this week I wanted to talk about caring for houseplants in the wintertime. Because wintertime, it kind of presents its own challenges. And there we go. Yep, some more distractions. Anyhow, the main issue that we have in the wintertime when it comes to caring for houseplants is humidity. So right here over my shoulder, and it's on that side on the camera, it's over here. Right here I have a humidifier. And what I do is I run it during the day to help boost the humidity in here in the room, because if you haven't noticed, and there's probably twice as many off camera, my office is a small jungle. I'm completely surrounded by houseplants, and my home is quickly becoming the same way. So humidity is really important during the wintertime. The cool air outside can't hold as much moisture, so of course the humidity drops outside. And then with electric heat and everything running inside, it tends to lead to really dry air. So there's a few different ways you can help with humidity. And one is running a humidifier. Another option, and I've got some over here off camera, is to put a tray underneath of your plants that you can fill up with water, and then that water will evaporate and kind of help moisten your plants. Another great option is a spray bottle. So if I have something that's looking particularly dry, like this cypress here, it likes to really start to dry out, I can just take my mister bottle and give it a good misting here. And I usually hit it about once a day with some mist. And, you know, that just helps it stay nice and moist. Another option, of course, is just keeping an eye on how much water your plants are getting. So something like this plant here, I actually have it because it requires a little bit wetter soil, and it actually needs some water. But I have it in this nifty 2.5 container. Oh my, little tiny weed that sprouted right there in my houseplant. Anyhow, this container, it has an exterior bowl, and you can put a little bit of water in it. And then when you set this down into it, the water soaks through it and keeps the plant watered. So that is another great option for managing moisture. Also, during this time of year, it's a great time to propagate plants and also do some transplanting. So I have some pothos here that I have starting in a little propagator that I have. And they've got some really nice root growth. So I'm going to pot these up, and I'm actually going to be taking them home. This pothos vine, it actually goes above my head here and around the other way. And the vine itself is probably about 10 years old, because I keep taking cuttings off of it and starting it. I've given some of them away. I've got another huge pot right down here on the floor and another one in that corner on the floor. And it's one of those that's really easy to propagate in water. So tonight, what I thought I'd do is pot these up that I've propagated and show you how I do that. It's really simple. And at home, what we use are these nifty containers from IKEA. So I've got a few different size ones. I need to take this cypress home, but it's the smaller size. Then this is kind of the medium. And then I also have larger, like, I think they're about 1.5 gallon pot. So we've got a variety of sizes for our different plants at home. But what I'm going to do is stick a couple of pothos in each one of these. And of course, I am really organized this evening, and I forgot to get a container to dip the soil out with. So let me step right outside the door here. Luckily, our water cooler is right outside the door, and just grab me a cup there, and it's going to live in this from now on for dipping soil. I'd mentioned before about watering, so especially this time of year, as the days are starting to get longer, I'm noticing that my house plants in here that are close to a window, like my ZZ plant right there, and my Christmas cactuses, they're starting to branch out right now with new growth where we're starting to get longer days. So it's a good idea not only to water your plants right now, but also give them a little bit of fertilizer. And what I use and what we recommend is Jack's Classic. This is their Houseplant Special, and it's 15-30-15. So has a really high phosphorus percentage, and that is just perfect for houseplants. So, yep, and it says right on it that for use on philodendron, dracaena, palm, ivy, ferns, snake plant, ficus, jade, aloe vera, spider plant, cactus, and I always pronounce this one wrong. Schefflera. But anyhow, it is a great choice for your house plants. So let's go ahead and start planting pothos. And as I said a second ago, pothos, it is super easy to propagate. So let me pull one out here. So this is just a cutting that I've taken. And the cool thing is you could take a long piece of vine and cut it into segments and then stick those in water and they'll grow roots. And on pothos, there's little nodes where the leaves come out. So I left a couple leaves on right here. So right here's a node with a leaf, then a node with another leaf. And right at the node, there's a little brown nubbin on both of these. And that's where roots come out. Because out in the wild, pothos, it tends to grow up trees in the forest. It's a tropical plant. So those little roots will reach out and grab one to the tree bark that it's growing up and kind of embed itself into the tree bark. But if you take that and put it in water, it'll actually trigger it to start growing roots out of those nodes. So I can pull this guy out here, and you can see the roots on it. So let me hold it up to the camera there. So you can see that there's two nice big roots that are coming out and circling around there at the bottom. So I did kind of leave them in a little bit too long. The roots are kind of starting to circle there. Yeah, I can sort of separate them, but oh, there's actually 3 roots. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I'm able to separate these roots a little bit because I didn't want them growing and kind of tangling up here on the bottom of the container. There we go. So I was able to separate these roots out. And what I'm going to do is set it in like that. I'm going to find another one here. This one also has a lot of roots and a lot of vine left on it. It had this nice loopity loop, so I just left it on there. There we go. So here's our other one. Let me go ahead and separate these out a little bit. These roots are pretty resilient. I'm surprised I'm able to bend them and pull on them quite a bit. I had a root that came out really up high here, so we'll have to kind of go like that, I think. Let me remove that leaf. I've got to kind of get creative here a little bit. There we go. I think I can hold those like that and then put dirt in around them. So while I'm doing this, feel free to jump in the chat and tell me if you have any favorite houseplants. So pothos is one of my favorites because it's easy to grow. Another one for its air purifying qualities and also its ease of propagation is snake plant, or mother-in-law's tongue, depending on what you want to call it. But it's another plant that's really easy to propagate and to grow. Another plant that I'm experimenting with right now, I just covered on our blog, and that is peperomia. So I have some of that. And the pot that I have was starting to get really overgrown. And I thought, well, I'll just take some cuttings and see what happens if I put them in water. And sure enough, they rooted. And I also put some cuttings in some soil and rooted them that way. And it seemed really easy to root them both ways. This soil is really easy to pack. It's really loose. I went over and got this out of our soil system right before we started broadcasting, and that's why I'm kind of scatterbrained this evening. I went over there for like one little thing, and I ended up being over there like 2 hours. I needed to look for some parts for a project that we're working on. So I went on an expedition for those, and as I was getting this soil, one of our transplanters, or transplanting lines, one of the soil fillers that we use to fill up, well, pots like this one, it had a little hiccup with us. So we ended up troubleshooting that. Alright, so got a pretty good amount of soil in here. One of the things when I'm using a fairly dry soil, and this is fairly dry, doesn't have very much water in it at all. I like to go in with a spray bottle first and moisten it down before I start watering it. And what that does is the peat moss is kind of naturally hydrophobic. It wants to repel water until it gets wet, and then it'll soak water right up. But when it's dry like this, it really wants to repel the water. And if I were to dump water straight on it from a watering can, what would happen is it would just sort of pool on the top, or it would burrow its way down through to the bottom, and the soil would just kind of float on top of it. By moistening it down with a sprayer like this, it helps me control the water that's going into it, and it also kind of helps it pack down a little bit. Because this will settle over time, and eventually I'm going to have to add a little bit more soil to it. Oh, and I was talking about controlling moisture earlier and dealing with the really dry conditions inside in the wintertime. So there's also a couple other things that I do. So this fiddle leaf fig behind me, I have the top of it completely covered with gravel. And I've actually got a plant right behind the camera that I have kind of a bed of gravel on. And what that does is it helps act as a mulch. It's helping hold in the moisture. So that's one route you can go. Another route, and this one takes a little bit more finesse, and you really have to watch your plants, and especially how much water you're giving them or not giving them. With these containers, it's really easy to weigh them and know just by feel whether they have enough water or not. But with these containers, I'm not drilling a drainage hole. So it's really easy to overwater them. So I have to really watch how much water I'm putting in. But the other benefit is whenever I water it, I don't have to worry about that water draining out, which means I also don't really have to worry about these plants drying out in the wintertime. So it's kind of a dangerous route to go. You risk root rot, but you really have to keep an eye on it if you go that route and don't go with a drainage hole. Kind of conventional thinking is you have to have a drainage hole, but that's not always the case. So there we go. And this, yeah, it needs just a scooch more water. So very gently going to add some water here with the watering can. And where I've pre-moistened it, it's probably hard to see on the camera, but as soon as the water hits it, it's not puddling up on the surface. It's soaking right in. And that's what we want. Yeah, and if I feel that, that feels just about right as far as water goes. Alright, so I've got 3 more stems here. One of these, well, actually, a couple of them. This one looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks really nice. Doesn't have much by way of leaves on it. But this one, yeah, if I pull this one up out, you can see what's wrong with it. It has gone bad on me. So the stem, it started rotting from the base, and yeah, doesn't look healthy. So I am not going to plant that one. This one, it looks like it has like some mold growth on it, but the plant itself looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and plant that, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully nothing bad. There is some green in there, so I think it might have had some algae that started growing in it. But yeah, I'm just going to plant these two up, and we'll see what happens with them. I think I'm going to kind of go with something like that. There we go. This is about half full, so to help this pack down, I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of water. And I've kind of ended up off center here. There we go. just water a bit here. And yeah, we're about equal there. So there we go. That is 2 pots of pothos planted up. And yeah, Carol Morris says hi. Hi. Yeah, so that is potting up some pothos. And as I said before, wintertime, it's really hard to control moisture. You know, heat and lack of humidity is always an issue in the winter. And that's where really sticking with watering your plants on a schedule comes in handy. Using things like a mister bottle and this humidifier here behind me to help raise the humidity in the room. All of those things, using a tray, something to cover your plants, like this mulch of stone that I used. All of those tips go a long way toward keeping your plants well hydrated during the dry winter months. And, well, I'm going to jump back over to the other camera. So I've got to go into standby mode here for just a second. And there we go. So, yeah, this week we were talking about houseplants, and over the coming weeks, we're going to kind of transition into getting ready for spring gardening. So, next week on our podcast, we're going to be doing an episode about garden journals. And that's something that's really important to me, is keeping a garden journal, and well, just a day-to-day journal. So let me dip off the camera right here for a second. Something that I keep is a notebook. And I'm going to talk about a few different methods of note-taking and journaling. But the method that I use is a system called bullet journaling, where every day I've got bullets that I follow. It's basically a to-do list. And bullet journaling has its own built-in method for moving tasks forward, backward, filing them away for the future. Different methods for handling tasks. And another great thing about bullet journaling is its flexibility. So I also create pages for planning out things. And then I also like to add in photos of different things that I'm working on. So back a couple weeks ago, I cleaned out my meadow garden, and I took a photo that day and just stuck it in here into my bullet journal. And that way, it's both keeping my daily tasks in order, but it's also a way for me to go back and look back at things. And both of those aspects are important when it comes to gardening and keeping a garden journal. So I kind of lump everything together, both work, home, garden, everything into one journal. But some people keep separate journals for different things. And if you keep a specific gardening journal, it's important for both planning for the future and then also keeping records and looking back at what you've done. So, yeah, next week on the Keep Growing podcast, we're going to be talking about garden journaling and not only keeping a paper journal, but also some more high tech methods of doing it, different apps and things like that. And then we're going to get into garden planning, you know, purchasing seeds, all of that good stuff to help you start to plan and get ready for this coming spring. So, well, until next time, which will be week after next, keep growing.